Folks, Oneil Cruz just keeps hitting baseballs, and that's a good thing.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is Ethan Smith. You can follow me right there on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Today's episode, as usual, has a sponsor, and today we're sponsored by Prize Picks. We'll talk about Prize Picks a little bit later on the show today. But folks, spring training is still ramping up. The Pirates are off today, so we'll talk about that a little bit in spring news and notes about what I'm expecting from what we could see today. You may also see some things are not here in the background right now. We'll update you on that as that progresses as well. But right now, folks, the story of spring training for this Pittsburgh Pirates team overall has been them hitting the baseball. And they've been hitting the baseball at a very good clip. They lead all of Major League Baseball in homers this spring. They've been doing absolutely phenomenal work putting the ball over the fence. Now, obviously, a lot of that could be the Florida weather. A lot of that could be wind. A lot of that could be a lot of different factors. I'm going to contribute it to the fact that the Pirates are just hitting the baseball very hard. And one of the players hitting the baseball very, very hard, as he typically tends to do so, is, of course, Oneil Cruz. Oneil Cruz has just been mashing baseballs over the past couple weeks. And really, I think for a lot of us, it's just nice, one, to see Oneil Cruz healthy on a baseball field and doing what he's doing. And two, it's nice to see him come back and be a major part of a lineup for a team that wants to compete for an NL Central pennant this year. And so far in spring, folks, and I know spring stats, they can be iffy. Sometimes we see spring stats that are really good. Sometimes we see spring stats that are really bad, and sometimes they don't even mean anything for the regular season, and sometimes they do. As I always joke on this show, Kevin Newman broke the spring training batting record just a few years ago. Kevin Newman is now a Cincinnati Red and no longer a Pittsburgh Pirate, and yeah, I mean, that's really all that boils down to that. Oneil Cruz, though, I do think that it's warranted, or it's okay to look at these stats and say that these are good things. You have to keep in mind that this is his first professional action in almost a year. Going into the regular season, it'll be his first regular season action in nearly a year, seeing as he only played about a week and a half of the season last year. And he has 31 ABs so far this spring. Not a large sample size at all. But in those 31 at-bats, you're looking at a guy who has a .355 average, a 1.476 OPS, 7 home runs, which is tied for first among all hitters in spring training, 14 RBIs, which is tied for second among all hitters in spring training, and 1 stolen base. Folks, Oneil Cruz is mashing the baseball. We joke about Cruz missiles all the time, but he's been hitting some missiles in spring training. And you really look at what Oneil Cruz's game has been ever since he really came up and what his game has been as he's grown into a professional baseball player. And ultimately, it's been a guy that's going to hit the baseball hard with top-end average exit velocity. And he's done that this spring training so far. He's had 7 home runs, as I mentioned already, being above 104.9 miles per hour. Yesterday, of course, he had 2, including 106.4 and 111.1. He's even had one, I believe, go above 115. So, yeah, he's doing some good things right now with hitting the baseball very hard. And that's what he did in 2022 when he first came up here. He leaned into that impressive average exit velocity. He leaned into that average barrel rate. He leaned into those things, and those were things for Oneil Cruz that contribute to why he's such a successful player. And those are going to be things that are going to continue to contribute to why he's such a successful player. He's going to continue to hit the baseball hard. And in today's Major League Baseball, that's always something that you're going to want to make sure is going to work for you. You look at the Aaron Judges of the world and the Ronald Acuñas of the world, and the Shohei Otanis and all these top players who are considered all-stars every single year and winning MVP awards. Well, a large part of that, folks, is because they're hitting the baseball off the bat very hard, and they're also barreling it up more often than not. Oneil Cruz, throughout his short career, which I've even said on this show multiple times, has not even really amounted to one full season yet, is a career where he has done that. He's hit the baseball hard. He's put it on all parts of the field. He's a strong left-handed power hitter who's going to always put the ball over the right field fence at PNC Park. That's just something that he's going to do. If he can continue to lean into that, which I don't suspect any reason why he wouldn't, then Oneil Cruz is going to hit 20-plus home runs easily this season. And I don't even think it's anything that we truly even have to worry about, that he wouldn't be able to do that. And when you look at what he's done already and the velocities that he's posted and what StatCast has said about him and all these other things, folks, he's going to be a phenomenal baseball player if he could just lean into these things. Now, obviously, Oneil Cruz has things that he needs to improve on. You look at chase rate. You look at whiff rates. You would like to see him get on base via the free pass more often. He's done that a good bit this spring as well. And if he could do those things, I mean, you're talking about a breakout season in order for Oneil Cruz. You're not talking about Oneil Cruz being a guy that just has a good season. You're talking about him being a potential all-star at the shortstop position. You're talking about him being a 20-20, maybe even a 30-30 type of player that can really just make an impact on this roster day in and day out. And a lot of people also tend to forget that last year, this Pirates team improved by 14 games. They had 62 wins in 2022 and 76 last year. Oneil Cruz played a week and a half of the season last year. He stays healthy this year, folks. This lineup is going to really shine with him in it, be it at the leadoff spot, be it number 3, number 4 in a cleanup spot. He's going to be fully ingrained in the top end of this lineup around the other top players on this team, like a Ke'Bryan Hayes, like a Brian Reynolds, even an Andrew McCutchen. You could throw him in there. And really, for Oneil Cruz, I think a lot of it just boils down to health at this point. He dealt with a little bit of injuries in 2022. He dealt with injury last year, obviously, in 2023, and it's a worrisome injury with the body type that Oneil Cruz possesses. But at the end of the day, I think it's warranted to say that with what he's done in spring training, if it can translate to the regular season, which I do think it can, because Oneil Cruz can just hit the baseball with ease and he just makes it look easy. Folks, you're looking at a guy who has the potential to be a superstar. And we haven't been able to say that about a Pirate since Andrew McCutchen. I mean, yeah, the Pirates have had really good players like Ke'Bryan Hayes, who I also think has the potential to be a superstar. Brian Reynolds looked like a superstar in 2021, has since teetered off, but he's still a very above average baseball player. Starling Marte was a very above average baseball player. Jamison Taillon and Josh Bell, Corey Dickerson, Neil Walker, AJ Burnett, Francisco Liriano. You can name all these guys, but none of them really were labeled superstars. Oneil Cruz has the makeup to be a perennial superstar in this league. And if he can reach into that ceiling a little bit for this Pittsburgh Pirates team, and he can be a true superstar in this lineup, this team its ceiling goes up. Because the higher that Oneil Cruz's ceiling goes, the higher the ceiling of this team goes. And that's a direct correlation, folks. I'm just telling you, same thing really with Ke'Bryan Hayes. Either or. And if both of them do, oh my God, you have the best, arguably the best left side of the infield in all of baseball if those two guys tap into their ceilings more. And for a guy like Oneil Cruz, again, obviously you want him to stay healthy this year. You want him to contribute to this team. If he doesn't have a quote-unquote breakout season, I also don't think it's time to really panic about it in any stretch of the imagination. I think we really just want to see him play a full season and see what he can do, because then we could finally get some answers to the questions that we have about Oneil Cruz's game. And we haven't been able to do that just yet. Is he an everyday shortstop? Is he a guy that's just not going to really ever hit for average? Is he just a power hitter? Is he power speed combo? Is that what he is? There's still a lot of questions surrounding Oneil Cruz's game. But with a full season, hopefully this year in 2024, we could start answering some of those questions. And if we could start answering some of those questions, I think it paints a clearer picture, one, of what we have in the 6'7" shortstop Oneil Cruz and what the team could eventually be in 2024 and beyond because of his success. And these are real things to think about, folks. These are real topics that you can think about, because if he turns into a superstar, like I said, the ceiling of this team skyrockets. And just imagine, it's almost an off-season acquisition to get a guy like Oneil Cruz back in your lineup because he wasn't there last year. And I'm very excited to see what he can do and see if he can take this torrid play that he's had in spring into the regular season. Folks, before we talk about Andrew McCutchen being on Milestones watch, I said milestones, not milestone, Milestones watch for 2024, we're going to talk about Prize Picks and Amazon Fire TV. Folks, download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100, because Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It is also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Do you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like Meek Mill and Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Conference tournaments are wrapped up, which means March is here, and the biggest moments in college basketball are getting closer. Be a part of the action on Prize Picks for both men's and women's college basketball. And don't forget, Prize Picks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays alive. Also, Caitlin Clark's in the tournament. If you think she could score more than 30 points, go bet on her. And download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. Today's episode is also brought to you by Amazon Fire TV channels, your sports destination. To learn more, visit amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV, because as you know, Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire Stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live television. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball, the March Madness tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Not to mention, you also get great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, and more. So check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. And folks, as I always remind you on this show, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the best MLB season preview, coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, be the first to get local insight from the MLB local experts like myself of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. And also, welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. And a person who's been a Pirate for a good chunk of his career, not every single day, but the majority of his career, is, of course, Andrew McCutchen. And I saw Buck's Dugout do a very fun piece on this morning, so shout out to them, on the milestones that Andrew McCutchen could hit this year. And last year, the injury did kind of sting a little bit because he was very close to reaching a couple of milestones, and a lot of people thought he would definitely reach one in particular before the season ended. Sadly, dealt with the injury that sidelined him, seems to be healthy again, which is a very good thing. And got to be happy about Kutch being in a Pirates uniform. I think he's going to be a leader in this clubhouse again this year. I don't think the drop-off in his production is going to be what many think it's going to be. And I think he's going to be just fine. Yeah, he's getting older. He's not the same player, but he's still a very valuable piece of this team nevertheless. And he has about 6 milestones that Buck's Dugout and myself, after reading the article, think that he can really reach this year just due to him being the player that he is. And the first one, obviously, and I already hinted at it, has to be 300 home runs for Andrew McCutchen. Really, it's very interesting with the 300 home run thing now, because home runs have just become such an integral part, there we go, of baseball and what it's become. So you see a lot more players reaching these milestones of 100, 200, 300, stuff like that. So some people would say that it's kind of lost its luster a little bit. For me, I would say that really reaching 300 home runs is still an amazing feat because only 159 players have reached that milestone. There's been a lot more players than that across Major League Baseball in its entirety. So for Andrew McCutchen to just be 1 home run away at 299 to reach that milestone and become the 160th player to do so, I think he's going to reach that pretty quickly. I don't think that's something that's going to really drag into the season that much where he goes through all of April, maybe even into May without a home run. I think he'll do it relatively quickly. I think it's something we can expect for him to do relatively quickly. And he would also be the 19th player in Major League Baseball history to have 2,000 hits, 300 home runs, and 200 stolen bases. So definitely something to watch for Andrew McCutchen. Probably the first milestone that he hits, seeing as these other ones are going to be more of season-long ones that I think would take the entirety of the season or at least a chunk of the season for him to reach. One of those being 3,500 total bases for Andrew McCutchen. He currently sits at 3,454, so he needs about 40. He needs not too many. He doesn't need too many there. And he's third right now in total bases among active Major League Baseball players, only behind Freddie Freeman and Joey Votto. I mean, not too far off from it. He's 46 total bases away. Can probably get that done within the first 2 to 3 months of the year. I'd even expect maybe the first month or two. And it really should be relatively easy for him to get this one as well, much like the home run one. He had 155 total bases last year. So, I mean, if he repeats that number, he'll obviously more than surpass that and also surpass some players on that all-time leaderboard as well. Now, these final ones are all relative to the Pittsburgh Pirates and their history. Nothing really that contributes to all-time stuff for Major League Baseball. These are all for top Pirates accolades. And the third milestone that I think he can reach is top 10 in hits in Pirates history. Now, we all know who the leader in this metric is. It's Roberto Clemente. He's probably going to be the leader in this metric for the rest of time, honestly, unless the Pirates have a slew of generational players that really try to get him in that metric. I don't think that's one that Clemente really has to worry about too much to be beat out for. And Kutch can break the top 10 in hits this year in Pirates history. Right now, he sits behind Tommy Leach and Fred Clark with 1,563 hits. Fred Clark, of course, sitting at 1,638 in the top 10. That slots Kutch about 76 hits behind Fred Clark. I think that should be close enough for him to join that strong group. I don't think that's something that he can't do. I would expect that he can get over 76 hits this year, even with a potentially diminished role. with the DH position needing more looks from potentially Henry Davis and Rowdy Tellez and other guys like that. But I don't think he'll have much of an issue getting to the top 10 in hits in Pirates history this year and jumping Fred Clark in that milestone. Meanwhile, milestone number 4, top 7 in RBIs in Pirates history, where he currently sits at 768 career RBIs right now, which slots him 9th in Pirates history. The leader in this category, Willie Stargell, at 1,540. And this one shouldn't be really all that difficult either for Kutch. It could depend on what his role is. If he's a leadoff guy, could be a little bit harder. If he's in his natural 3 to 4 spot, could be a little bit easier with Oneil Cruz, Brian Reynolds, Jack Sawinski, and Key Brian Hayes sitting in the top of the lineup. But Ralph Kiner sits at 801. Kutch sits at 768. So he's not too far off to break the top 7 in RBIs in Pirates history. So I would say it's another milestone that's well in reach for Kutch, especially if he gets ample playing time and opportunity. Probably my favorite one on this list that Bucks Dugout highlighted is top 5 in Pirates history in walks. And we all love a good Kutch bat flip after a walk, and it's something he's done well really his entire career. And I think that this is awesome that he has the potential to break the top 5 in walks in Pirates history. He currently sits 7th right now in Pirates history at 760 walks, Kutch being 35 walks behind Ralph Kiner, who ranks 5th. Willie Stargell also leads this category at as well at 937. Would be awesome to see Kutch eventually reach Willie Stargell, but I don't think he'll get to that point. I do think he'll easily reach the top 5 and pass Ralph Kiner in this category. And he does tend to get on base via the free pass a ton. So I don't think this is one you really have to worry about too much from Kutch. Now, probably the most unlikely one and the final milestone that he could potentially reach this year is 50 career triples. And I say that this is the most unlikely of the bunch because he hasn't registered a triple. And this is really weird that he hasn't registered a triple since 2021 in his time with the Phillies, but he sits at 49 career triples. So he's been on this little milestone to get 50 triples now for almost 3 years. And he's not as fast as he once was, but really, especially with PNC Park, I think all it really takes is for him to hit one into the notch and just go guns a-blazing on the base path. And he could probably get there. And he's still got some speed behind him. So this is definitely something that I could see Andrew McCutchen doing. So really all it takes is one good ball into the gap or a misplay by an outfielder, and I think that it could get it to him, but it's also probably the unlikeliest of the bunch. And really, when you break it down to brass tacks, ultimately, watching Kutch in a Pirates uniform is all that matters here. I'm always going to praise Andrew McCutchen on this show because really he was a big part of my childhood from what I was watching with baseball, especially my teenage years. Seeing him win an MVP made me realize it was possible for a Pittsburgh Pirate to win that award. And allowing him to break these milestones in the black and gold really is an awesome feeling heading into 2024. And most of them are likely. I think that he's going to be on milestones watch this year where he's going to break a good amount of these, break into the Pirates record books a little bit. And we'll be watching as the season progresses. And another thing that we've been watching so far as baseball has returned to us in the year 2024 is spring training, meaning it's time for spring news and notes. But before we get into that, folks, we're going to get into FanDuel. FanDuel.com/lockedon should be your place to do all your sports betting right now because you could say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the March Madness tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a number 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's number 1 sportsbook because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets because FanDuel is an official sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. And folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast in the final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. To all my loyal third segment listeners, thank you for always tuning into the show, as you always do, in its entirety. Make sure you let me know that you do that in the comments below. It would be very much appreciated. And as far as spring news and notes are concerned, the Bats were on fire yesterday, folks. They were absolutely electric against the Philadelphia Phillies on Monday. The Pirates rolled over Philly yesterday, 11-2. The aforementioned Oneil Cruz, who we talked about at the top of the show, had 2 homers and 6 RBIs on the day, tying him for first in home runs among everybody in Major League Baseball. So he continued his strong spring, again, that we discussed at the top of the show. Ke'Bryan Hayes had a 3-hit day as well. So the Pirates' top of their stars on the left side of their infield and the left side of the field were having a very good day. Henry Davis, Rowdy Tellez, Jared Triolo, and Billy McKinney all had multi-hit days. Rowdy Tellez was the only other Pirate outside of Cruz to go yard. He added a homer alongside Cruz as well, adding to the power element, again, that I talk about a lot, that this team could possess this year, because they still lead Major League Baseball in all of home runs right now. What was interesting, the Pirates did have 3 errors on the day. Found that very interesting, something that could be a little bit worrisome moving forward, but I wouldn't worry too much about it with Hayes being in the lineup. You obviously have a guy like Michael A. Taylor. Hopefully you see improvements from Oneil Cruz at shortstop. So we'll see how the defense overall looks this year. But with the addition of Michael A. Taylor, I think overall the defense is going to be a plus for this team. As for pitching, Martin Perez had a very good day. He got some good work in yesterday, pitching 5 strong innings. In those 5 innings, by the way, he struck out 8 and allowed 2 unearned runs. So really shutout innings on 5 hits. So an impressive showing again from one of the Pirates' top free agent signings. You really hope Perez can go back to that 2022 form, be a Robin to Mitch Keller's Batman a little bit, and eat some innings and some quality innings for this Pittsburgh Pirates team. Roansy Contreras followed him yesterday, walked 3. He's losing his command a little bit this spring over his last couple appearances. Not something you want to see from Roansy, who's fully ingrained in that back-end rotation battle. And he did manage to strike out 5, though, and he only allowed 2 hits and no runs. So not the worst outing for him, but he has to eliminate the walks and get his command back to have sustained success. The rest of the day was anchored by Willie Peralta and 2 lower-level pitchers who pitched scoreless outings. So not much really on the pitching side outside of Perez and Contreras. And the Pirates are off today. They do not have a spring training game today, meaning I think we're going to see some roster shuffle. I think we're going to see a lot more options. We're going to see a lot more guys being sent to minor league camp. And you're going to get a better, clearer picture of what this roster is going to look like heading into opening day. We've already seen rounds of cuts and assignments already, but the Pirates still have decisions at second base in the final 2 rotation spots to watch for. Those are things that I think that over this last week and a half that you're going to be looking for, and the Pirates are going to have to answer these pretty quickly. And it's also interesting to me, too, how this bullpen is going to shake out a little bit. Dauri Moreta appears that he might be on the shelf for a little bit, so we'll see maybe if a Braxton Ashcraft could come up and make an impact right away, maybe a Brent Honeywell Jr., maybe one of these starters that the Pirates are really thinking about that they don't want to slot into the rotation right away. There's a lot of stuff going on, and the bench even too, I think is really fun with plenty of candidates available. And opening day, folks, is just a little over a week away, so these decisions should be coming sooner rather than later, and we'll have all of them covered here on the Locked On Pirates podcast, where it's your team every day. My name is Ethan Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can find this show on YouTube and all of your audio platforms because it is free and available to you every Monday through Friday. Don't forget to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel after you check out this show. And folks, have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Enjoy your day. See you on the flip side.